We've got our friend Brian Windhorst back here. You there, Brian?
I'm sorry, Rich. I relocated to hopefully a better area here.
Terrific. So just to repeat, I asked you what we're witnessing with Anthony Edwards, and I chose that word purposefully because it does appear that we're seeing something special unfold, Brian.
It's extremely rare for a player who's this young, age 22. I know he's in his fourth season, but he's still really young, to care this much about both ends of the court or be this talented at both ends of the court. You sometimes see guys who are very talented defensively, and they're not talented offensively. He is obviously extremely talented offensively. He could have the highlight of the night any night in the NBA. And this guy who cares so much about defense. And I think it's because he's been raised on a team that cares about defense. And finding two-way stars, it's hard. And finding two-way stars that are this engaging and who are this competitive and who want it and frankly do it with a smile. Now, I'm not saying he won't play with an edge or won't scowl every now and then, but he's a very electric personality with an electric game. And, he's somebody that is going to be on your television on Christmas Day and in the spring, I think, for many years to come.
So what did we see on Saturday that you think is repeatable here for them in this series?
So they had a very interesting game plan. They're more equipped to do this than other teams are before I talk about it. But I think it's important to realize that Chris Finch and Mike Inouye, who is the lead assistant, both used to coach in Denver. And so it's not like there's any secrets about the Nuggets, but these guys have been thinking about this series for a long time. And remember, last year, they obviously went out in 6 games. But they didn't have Jaden McDaniels, who's one of the best perimeter defenders in the league because he punched the wall the last night of the season and broke his hand. They didn't have Naz Reid, who's that third 7-footer that gives them all those options on Jokic. He was out with injury too. Now that they got their full hand, their game plan really had 2 facets defensively, or actually overall. One, they attacked Jamal Murray on defense and put him in something like 60 or so pick and rolls. And the guy that they brought up to screen every single time was whoever Jokic was guarding. So Jokic and Jamal Murray were forced to defend something like 60 plus pick and rolls, which meant they had to work and expend energy on the defensive end. And also Murray's dealing with a leg injury. So they challenged him there. The second thing is defensively, they treated Jokic like a guard. Because he is a guard in a lot of ways. So repeatedly, not the whole game, but 7 or 8 times, they pressured him in the backcourt or picked him up full court with their big men. Now, you don't typically want your big man pressuring in the backcourt, but when you have 3 that you can rotate in, that's just it forced him to work a little harder. And again, you're working on wearing him out. And then they didn't really put Gobert. Go tomorrow. Gobert is probably going to win his 4th Defensive Player of the Year award, and so you'd say, well, you got Gobert, you put him on Jokic, but they didn't really. What they did was they would put one of the other big men on him, and there were times when Gobert did guard him, but they put one of the other defensive center 7-footers on him, and the reason was because they wanted Gobert back there to defend the rim, to defend those lobs for Aaron Gordon. And as a result, they had size on Jokic that he had to deal with, and they took away that play at the rim. You add it all up, and it ends up being a pretty effective game plan. Now, I think there will be counters that the Nuggets will run, and they'll look to do some other stuff with their role players, especially Michael Porter, who I think is playing well enough to merit more than 13 shots. But the game plan that they have is got some merit that could cause them some problems over the course of the series.
Brian Windhorst of ESPN here on the Rich Eisen Show. The Knicks and the Pacers begin tonight, and Knicks fans are feeling it. They're feeling it, Brian, and then you're also seeing stories out there that they're not only back, but back on the map as a destination for other players that want to be there because they're seeing what's cooking there. Is there any, fire behind that smoke right now? Do you think, Brian?
Well, there's kind of 2 types of teams in the playoffs. There's teams in the playoffs that have sort of expended their resources and adding talent. You look at something like, Minnesota, for example. Minnesota has traded all of its picks and pick swaps that they're allowed to trade going forward. If there was a player that today declared, "I'm a superstar, get me to Minnesota," it'd be hard to trade for him. And then you have, Cleveland is another example of that. Boston has traded not everything, but they've traded a lot. And you have a team like New York, which has 7 tradable first round picks and 11 overall over the next 7 years. Tradable salary that they have, and the ability to have somebody be upwardly mobile. And the thing about it is, Rich, I have thought that somebody was going to want to be in New York for years now. And I was thinking that back in 2019-20 because it's so wide open to come and have a moment. And by the way, someone's taken it. That person is Jalen Brunson. Jalen Brunson has used New York the way that I thought other star players would want to do it. Jalen has just become a star in the role. Whereas I thought other stars would want to be here. I'm still a little bit amazed that Kevin Durant didn't want to play in New York and he wanted to play in Brooklyn. He's articulated it. He has his reasons, whatever. But so you're asking me, do I think it could happen? Yeah, but I thought it would happen 3, 4 years ago.
Well,
Yeah. So the one thing I'll say about this team is they are very much calibrated for Tibbs. This team is almost designed perfectly to play for Tibbs. So I think they have to be careful. Obviously, if you can get one of the top 10 players in the league or 15 or whatever, says he wants to play there, you definitely going to do it. But they got something good going here, and they need to have patience on what they want to do with this roster.
well, it's interesting you mentioned Durant because I don't know of many people that kind of believe Matt Ishbia is saying we're the team to beat, essentially. Like we're gonna stick and stay. A lot of folks think that they're gonna have to get rid of either Durant or Booker. Is that true, Brian?
Do people in the league say that? Yes, they do. I talked to multiple people who think that's what they're going to have to do. Do the Suns say that? No, they do not. I think the Suns' intention is to keep all 3 of these star players, tweak their roster, tweak some of their systems and their processes, and try to be better next year. And Durant, not that he is, sworn to telling the whole truth all the time. Durant, when he left, basically said, I think continuity is valuable. He was looking at the Timberwolves team that had basically brought their entire team back from last year. And he's like, that continuity is pretty important there. That said, in a player like Durant's case, that's not up to them. That's up to the team. It's up to the player. It's always up to the player. And so if Durant had a change of heart, which we've seen in the past, then that would potentially be on the table. But he didn't say that. He didn't sound like that. And it doesn't sound like that's what the team wants. And if your point is that you don't think they're going to be able to materially change their roster without doing something like that, I'm not disagreeing with you, but I don't think it's something that as we sit here in the first week of May, not saying that's something that we should expect.
Brian Windhorst here on the Rich Eisen Show. Interpret Joel Embiid's post-game comments after being eliminated, talking about how we have these players here for 1 year and gone. What did he? I assume he was referring to Harden, if not Jimmy Butler before that, but I'll give you the floor on interpreting those comments, Brian.
Well, the best thing about what Philly has going for them is that they have discovered their second star. And so when the Harden, I don't know if you want to call it an experiment because it was kind of a marriage, when that failed, it looked like the Sixers may be in trouble because how are they going to replace that player? Well, they have found a new star player, and that is what's most important when you consider what's going on with the with the 76ers. They also have $60 million in cap space, but they are not going to be under pressure to go out and get a player that is an MVP type candidate. They can potentially break that up into several different things. They don't have to sign players with it either. They can use it in trades. There's other ways to use cap space than in signing players. And they got some assets in that Harden trade. They got a couple extra draft picks that they can use in deals. So I think what Embiid's looking at is let's start to construct a core, and let's do that with this offseason. And the Sixers are equipped to do that. And I would, if I was a player who was interested in moving teams, whether it's by free agency or by trade, you're looking at what Maxey is doing and you know what Joel can do. And you're saying, hey, I can go and be that sort of supporting star that could really fit there. So there's a couple of teams that are in that spot. They're going to have competition, but they have the tools to improve their roster. And so I promise you, Daryl Morey is working every single day on that between now and July to get that done.
Brian Windhorst here on the Rich Eisen Show. Our studios are just up the road from the Lakers facility. What's going on in that building right now, Brian?
Well, I know that they probably would have loved to have gotten their hands on Ty Lue, but it sounds like Ty Lue is, I don't know. I don't think they'd started the negotiation as of the end of last week. So I don't want to say like, it's all spick and span, but it sounded to me like the Clippers want to extend him and that he is, for the most part wants to be there. So he's off the board. And so now you're looking at finding a coach for a team that they've had a coach every 2 or 3 years. They're playing an incredibly competitive situation in the Western Conference with teams in front of them that I don't necessarily see flying back at them, and teams behind them gaining on them with an older roster. The one thing that they have 3 first-round picks and some players they potentially could use and trade. I do think that they can be a player in the market to try to upgrade their roster, but they also have a tendency to not want to go to the wall when it comes to paying coaches. And, we're in a situation where top coaches are now getting 8 figures a year. And, the Lakers, I don't know if they're prepared for that type of commitment. Maybe they are, but like Mike Budenholzer is a name that is being associated with them a lot. Well, first off, Mike Budenholzer coaches some of the same systems that Darvin Ham does because Darvin came from Budenholzer's staff in Milwaukee. Secondly, I'm watching what the coaches with a championship on their resume have gotten paid over the last year. Steve Kerr got 17. Eric Spoelstra got 15. Monty Williams, who doesn't even have a championship, got 12 or 13, whatever that was. Mike Budenholzer is a championship coach. So you better be ready to open up that checkbook, and maybe the Lakers will, but they're going to be deep into the tax next year. So there's a lot of things at play when you consider it's not just go out and get the best available coach. There's a lot of different things at play. We also don't even know all the jobs that are going to be open yet. There's still some situations we got to keep an eye on. So it's going to be hard. And whenever you fire a coach who's had some success, and Darvin had some success, you can quibble with anything that you want about his rotations or some of his decisions or what happened in that series with the Nuggets. He had some success. And if you're going to remove a coach who's had some success, you are under immense pressure as an organization to upgrade. And it can be hard. And, a significant part of the reason why the Lakers are out in the first round this year is because their roster had flaws. Some of the reason that Darvin was making some of the decisions he was he was playing whack-a-mole a lot of times, trying to fix certain things that were popping up. So it's a very hard job. There's some challenges with it, and it's not maybe the glamour job that people outside may assume that it is.
Well, I mean, and obviously it's all a big question about what LeBron wants to do, right? How long does he want to stay? Does he want to stay? Who's the coach that he would definitely say, yeah, let's bring that guy in for my last couple of years of my career that I'm now willing to stay in Los Angeles to do. What about his son? I mean, don't you think that is essentially a large part of this equation too, Brian?
Kinda. Like, I'm not sure LeBron has made a free agency decision in his career based on the coach. He didn't care about David Blatt when he came to Cleveland. He didn't care about Eric Spoelstra when he went to Miami. He didn't care about Luke Walton when he went to the Lakers. It wasn't like when he was, when he left Cleveland, he was leaving Ty Lue, the guy he would probably love to have back. I think LeBron just assumes that the organization he's going to give his opinion and the organization's either going to do it or not. If I were, the Lakers, you're looking for a coach who has a vision for how to use the players that you've got or how to acquire the players that can help you. LeBron's going to do what LeBron's going to do. I mean, I've described being the coach of the Lakers right now like being vice president, because you're going to be third or fourth in charge at best. It's a great sounding job, and you get to fly in a nice plane, and you get great hotel or restaurant reservations, but you're not paid that much relatively, and you often get blamed for stuff. It's obviously a coach can make a big difference in the NBA. I'm not downplaying that, but it sounds like a better job than it actually is. And if you don't believe me, ask the last 3 or 4 guys or 5 or 6 guys who've been in it.
Before I let you go, Brian, did you see the Brady roast last night?
I did. I've just seen clips.
Okay.
I've just seen clips.
Do you think there's any NBA star that would subject himself to sitting in a roast chair like Brady did last night?
It is an absolutely great question.
Thank you.
I don't think I'd be stunned if LeBron did.
Jordan? Would Jordan ever sit down for something like that?
Oh, God, no. Are you kidding me? There'd be a fist fight. I mean, maybe Steph, because Steph is so well liked and it would all be sort of good natured.
Mm-hmm.
But can I say that
yes.
I do, as you said before I came on,
yes,
I do find this version of Belichick absolutely fascinating. I was on the edge of my seat during the McAfee broadcast during the draft, the way he was analyzing stuff, because he opened the door to that ridiculous display that he gave us every week at the podium. He opened the door and showed why he is the visionary and great guy that he is. And I am here for all of it.
Me too.
If he's coached his last game, which I would be surprised about, so be it. But if this is the last act of Bill Belichick, give it all to me. I couldn't be more interested in him showing the world exactly what kind of person he is, because it potentially could change the way people look at him. I know that sounds wild. Maybe not obviously not going to change the way they judge his accomplishments, but it could change the way people evaluate him as a person. And I mean, he should lean into it. First off, he'd make a lot of money doing it, maybe not as much as coaching, but I mean, that was my favorite part of it. I loved it. And I can't wait my first order of business will be to watch all of his routine or whatever.
Oh, it was great. He was great at it, man. I love it. You say there'd be a fist fight if Jordan ever was the roastie. Is that what you're saying?
Within 15 minutes, maybe less. I mean, he doesn't put up with that stuff. Forget about it. I mean, he's documentedly punched teammates in practice, and I promise you, Steve Kerr did not insult him or anything like that. Or can you imagine just from the Bobcats years, the material? I mean, forget about it. No, first off, the guy's a billionaire.
Brady's close to it. I mean, that's why. I mean, he's subjected himself. I'm
no
just
idea.
So there's
no idea why.
So Curry. I don't know if Curry's roastable though. You know what I mean?
Like there's nice. Yeah, everybody likes him.
You know what I mean? Like you gotta have a hook.
But Draymond.
That's not
there'd
a
be
bad
a
one.
long. There'd be a Draymond might throw a punch too, but I think there'd be a long line of people who'd be happy to be on that roast list.
That's not a bad one, Brian. Okay, I'll forward. We're gonna run that up a flagpole. Thanks for the time as always, and always look for my calls, texts, and requests for your time. You're awesome. Thanks, brother.
Take care, guys. Have a good week.
At Windhorst ESPN, check him out.
Hey, buddy.
Follow him. Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.